guys ever have those weeks where you sit down to watch wrestling and it's just not clicking? Like the vibe is it's just off. And that's what I was feeling this week. I don't know, something about it. I just wasn't in the wrestling watching mode. And this is a weird time in wrestling, right? We're under 60 days away from WrestleMania, but there still isn't a lot of clarity in what the card is looking like. You start to hear all of the dirt sheets kick up different rumors about supposed matches that are going to take place. You start to scratch your head because you maybe have it penciled in one way, but you hear things that make you go, I'm not quite sure how that makes sense. And it's a weird time in wrestling where there's just so much up in the air, but there's not really a lot to go on what's on television. We still have the Elimination Chamber, which I'm absolutely excited about. I won't change my position on that. It's just the path that we're taking to get there seems to just kind of be long and drawn out. Like, I can't believe we're still another week away. I think if the Elimination Chamber was this weekend, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable. We still have to go like another 7, 8, 9 days until we figure out kind of the major pieces of what WrestleMania is going to start looking about. And what I'm hearing is, like, I hear the dirt sheets start kicking up. I'm starting to hear rumors of, like, Kevin Owens not fighting Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens is going to fight Randy Orton at WrestleMania. I scratch my head and I go, I haven't seen any signs of that, but that seems like the type of shit WWE would do. I start to hear rumors that AJ Styles is going to be taking on Finn Balor. And I go, okay, I can see the path to get there, but is that the best match we can get? And then you hear rumors of like Logan Paul and Braun Breaker, and I really scratch my head and I go, what the fuck are we talking about? Are we building backwards or are we building forwards? Like, you have a match set up between Braun Breaker and Sheamus that has an emotional storyline built in. If you go the route of Braun Breaker and Logan Paul, what is the history there? What is the purpose of that? And to me, that is when wrestling gets irritating. That's when it starts to bother me, because me and Wavy D have expertly crafted a WrestleMania card that I think would satisfy most walks of wrestling. Most fans would be okay with what me and Wavy D put together. And now these rumors come out and potentially WWE is going to fuck that up. This is the part of wrestling that gets irritating. It just is. Like, Triple H, we have our ear to the streets, man. Me and Wavy, we know what's going on. Some of these rumors I'm hearing, that's not it, Jack. I mean, and I understand. I understand this could all be smoke and mirrors. I understand this could all be bullshit. I get that possibility, but more often than not, where there's smoke, there's fire. And the reality is, there's a big possibility that we come out of Elimination Chamber and everything we thought was going to happen looks completely different than what we've imagined these last couple weeks. The reality is, we're starting to run out of time for the setup for The Rock and Roman. Now, breaking news, we heard earlier tonight, The Rock will be on SmackDown tomorrow. Now, I am one to jump to conclusions. I saw Mike in the Discord go, everybody calm down. They're in New Orleans. This is going to be an announcement for WrestleMania next year. Slow down, Mike. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know that I keep teasing Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson if there's not something to be had at WrestleMania this year. I still do not believe that the prime choice for WWE right now is to put Roman Reigns as a third option in a match with CM Punk and Seth Rollins. I don't think that's happening. I saw Mike even say, well, maybe if The Rock's involved, it's not going to be Roman, it's going to be with Cody. I still don't believe that. I'm still holding off hope that Dwayne's coming back and it's going to be for Roman, that they know they don't need a ton of build towards this. Now, is tomorrow going to set that up? I'm not positive, but it gives me hope. It gives me hope that Dwayne's popping his head up and we're about 60 days out from WrestleMania, he's going to get a hit. He's going to hit it. That hit of adrenaline, that shot to The Rock's ego, it's going to swell up inside of him. And I think there's a possibility he goes, I could give him a couple weeks. I could do a couple of weeks. I still believe this is possible. But I'm like I said, I'm not sold on CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes. I'm not sold on Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. Some of these matches that will be thrown out there. I'm excited to get through the Elimination Chamber because that will answer a lot of questions for me. We'll know at least what the two major title matches are, and then we can start filling in the puzzle pieces around that. I'll shake off the cobwebs. I'll re-engage. I'll get back into the grind of watching wrestling. But just right now, I don't know what it is. I'm just not feeling it. And I've seen guys in the Discord kick around the idea, Monday Night Raw is a more stomachable show than Friday Night SmackDown. I'm not sure I always agree with that. I think right now, the problem is this 2 hour and 30 minute, 3 hour wrestling show is just tough when you don't have enough to fill that time slot. And so you're filling it with a bunch of things that I don't think matter. And I think we've proved 2 hours is the sweet spot. If I could get a 2 hour Monday Night Raw and a 2 hour Friday Night SmackDown, and then you could fill that in with a 2 hour NXT, a 2 hour whatever this Evolve show is, that's enough wrestling. That's enough wrestling for the week. 6 hours or 5.5 hours just feels like too much to consume when I don't think the stories are there to support it. But let's jump right in to this week's community take number one because I'm excited to explore this topic. So take number one is scheduled for 5 minutes and comes from...
Welcome to the junkyard, step inside the ring. We talk that trash, let the steel chair swing. No rules, no filter, just raw and loud. If you're soft, tap out, this ain't your crowd.
So James stirred up the Discord this week. James had the audacity to ask the Discord, hey, serious question. Is WWE dying? They lost 60% of their Netflix audience in 5 weeks. Now, when James first posted this, I thought he was trolling. I thought this was a joke. I thought he was just trying to get a reaction on people. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. But when you look at the actual numbers from the debut of Monday Night Raw on Netflix, this is a 100% accurate statement. We've lost about 60% of that audience. WWE is dying. It's time to overreact. We should all jump off the ship. But let's be more specific. Let's be more realistic when we talk about these numbers. WWE is not dying. The casual fan base that jumped over to see The Rock, that jumped over to see John Cena, sure, they're dying off. But the WWE is not dying off. The fringe fan base, the ones I'm talking about, the ones that are only there to see The Rock, they're only there to see John Cena, they may be leaving. They may be going back to whatever other Netflix show they're watching on Monday nights. But the WWE as a company, nah, homie, we're doing just fine. We are right where we want to be. No disrespect to you, James, because I understand it's a tough pill to swallow. Because if AEW ever lost 60% of its viewership, that would mean that there's like 6 people watching a Collision. So I understand that this is a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow. But real OG casual wrestling fans, we never expected this kind of uptick to stick around. We all know WWE is cooking right now, and it'll level off, and it'll all kind of, wrestling's cyclical. But right now, we are not nervous because what we know as casual wrestling fans, we know there are four levels of wrestling fans. Okay, and let me break those down for you guys. Number one, there's the sicko. This is the sicko who is mad when I say I don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, or I don't know every little thing about AEW wrestling, and they tell me, go look it up, go do your research. You should eat, breathe, live, and shit pro wrestling and know everything. Don't ask any questions. You should know everything. That's a sicko. Those exist, okay? Then you have the group that I spend most of my time battling with, and that's the IWC. And this is the group sometimes that tries to rope in the informed casual fan. But this is the group of hipsters who live in a delusional world where they watch AEW and they will tell you that AEW competes with WWE on a weekly basis. They'll tell you they're a competitor, and that is the IWC, and they live in a state of delusion. Now, there is the informed casual wrestling fan, and this is where most of our community sits. We know enough to talk our shit, but we don't breathe and live pro wrestling, and we aren't afraid to say what we don't know. We are not afraid to speak up and say we don't know. We don't know who that guy is. We don't know why AEW does what they do. We don't understand it, nor are we searching for a bigger understanding. That's the informed casual. Then on the very outside of this thing, you have what I call the basic wrestling bro. Now, the basic wrestling bro, these are the fans that make up that 60% increase that you saw when Monday Night Raw debuted on Netflix. Anytime a Hulk Hogan, a Dwayne The Rock Johnson, a John Cena, or a Stone Cold Steve Austin come around, their ears, they kind of perk up. Anybody from the Attitude Era, really, their ears perk up. They go, I know these names, and they jump back in the pool for a couple of weeks. These guys want to watch John Cena. And when they realize John Cena is not going to be on TV week after week after week, they disperse and they go away again. You know, these are guys, we've all seen these guys. These are the guys when we go to a wrestling show as an informed casual fan and we know what's going on. These are the guys that sit behind us with their girlfriend. They have no fucking clue who anybody is. They have no clue what's going on. You hear them mention Eddie Guerrero and Stone Cold Steve Austin at least 5 times during the night. And they're just there because wrestling's in town. It's something fun to do. They have a general idea of what wrestling is, and they're going to cheer for the good guy. And there's nothing wrong with that level of fan, but that's the basic wrestling bro, and that's the group that makes up that 60%. Now, as informed casual wrestling fans, we knew these guys were going to jump off the boat. We knew that once the dust settled, once we kind of got in rhythm on Netflix, once the Royal Rumble was over, once John Cena went back into hiding, once The Rock didn't show up on a weekly basis, once Roman Reigns went back to whatever island of relevancy he hides on, we knew these fans were going to leave. These are the same guys these are the same fans that hate CM Punk because they still remember the CM Punk John Cena feuds for the 2010s. They don't have a new recollection. If you want to put it in other terms, these are the New York Yankee fans of the WWE. They just like the best team. They just like the biggest names. They're going to root for the team, but they're not going to watch on a weekly basis. They're not watching regular season games. They'll show up for WrestleMania. That's how WWE gets to the 80,000 number at WrestleMania, is because the wrestling bros all show up. But they don't watch regular season games. They don't watch Monday Night Raw. So after the big event with Netflix, we expect a decline. We expect these guys to start to fade away. And on top of that, like I said in the opening, this is one of the most notoriously hard times of wrestling to watch. This in-between as we anticipate WrestleMania, where we know nothing is going to be huge. WWE is not going to shoot a big load in the next 10 days. They're saving all of the anticipation for WrestleMania. So we're going to get a couple of things that set up stories. We're going to get a couple of things just past the time, but you're not going to get heavy, interesting storytelling right now. So reality is we're in holding for WrestleMania. Like that's where we're trying to figure out. And I suspect Triple H still has a few aces up his sleeve. We don't know everything about WrestleMania. The Rock is going to, y'all can keep telling me he's not. I still believe The Rock is showing up at WrestleMania so he can recharge his ego for another year. It's inevitable, right? He needs that juice to get him going so he can go make a bunch more bad movies for the rest of the year. The Netflix numbers, you know, I get 60% sounds so scary, but let's check back in 2 weeks. Let's really look at it when we get into that middle of the road to WrestleMania. I guarantee you that those numbers creep back up a little bit. And the reality is, to be honest, we're just right back to where we were when we were on the USA Network. So nothing to panic about here, James. Nothing to panic about. 60% for WWE, it's just not that scary of a number because we peaked so high that we're able to recover from something like this. Let's go ahead and plug in and hear what Jim Cornette has to say. So my guy DJ Wavy D sent me this clip, and gotta say, I don't listen to Jim Cornette. I always get told I'm a Jim Cornette. I listened to 3 minutes of this clip. I'm gonna play you 1 minute, but I listened to 3 minutes of this clip. Man, I hope I don't sound like this. I absolutely hope that I have more nuance than what Jim Cornette says in this clip. This clip here is Jim Cornette, and I don't know who's with him. I'm ignorant to who the hell he podcasts with. But this clip is about their feelings on Michelle McCool being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Going into the WWE Hall of Fame in the I slept with a wrestler division. I shouldn't say that, but what the fuck? Michelle McCool, WWE Hall of Famer. According to the video that aired on SmackDown last night, I know you didn't see it, they called her a trailblazer. The same words used for Leah Maivia last year, a trailblazer and a legend. I mean, is anyone a fucking legend at this point?
Have we ever seen Michelle McCool wrestle? I mean, well, she's been retired, I guess, for a while. Have I ever spoken of seeing Michelle McCool wrestle?
I don't know if you would have ever seen her. She was from that dark period where everything was Vince McMahon and awful, like in the early part of, the 2010s, and she was in the team Lay Cool with Layla. I mean, they were both Diva Search or Diva. They tried out to be divas, and they got into wrestling, and I don't think Michelle McCool's ever had like a classic match or a good match. I can't remember a single thing that she did that was good, but she married The Undertaker.
This is wild. Here's the problem. This is what happens when dudes who watch wrestling think only dudes watch wrestling. If wrestlers who resonated with sexless basement IWC neckbeards and expired voices from the business made it into the Hall of Fame, it'd be a bunch of dudes we'd never heard of. This is absolutely insane. This sounds like two dudes who don't get any pussy. Like this is wild. This sounds such like jealousy. And as hard as it is for some of the IWC and apparently Jim Cornette to understand, there is a female audience that watches WWE. And the reality is that Lay Cool, he can act like he don't know who Lay Cool is, but Lay Cool had a role in laying the foundation for what women's wrestling has become today. We are talking about a Hall of Fame, okay? We are making reference to a Hall of Fame for a completely made up sport that relies on narratives. And these guys are surprised when someone gets nominated and it creates a solid narrative. Outside of that, outside of the fact that this is a feel-good story, I would argue that in the short life of high-level women's wrestling, Michelle McCool and more importantly, Lay Cool are extremely underrated in the world of pro wrestling and how it gets talked about. I will digress that it should be Lay Cool going into the Hall of Fame, not just Michelle McCool. I will make that admission, but the reality is Michelle McCool has gone on record saying that Layla wants nothing to do with WWE right now. She doesn't want anything to do with the wrestling world, so it makes sense that you had to do it this way. It had to be Michelle McCool. If you couldn't get Layla, I don't think you can do Lay Cool and not have both of them show up. I think that shines a little bit of a negative light on the Hall of Fame. But let's take this for what it is, Jim Cornette. Let's break this down and be realistic and talk about this just from a numbers point a perspective. Let's run down Michelle McCool's accomplishments, and you guys tell me if she's worthy of the Hall of Fame, okay? She was Pro Wrestling Insider Women's Wrestler of the Year 2010. Now, I don't put a lot of stock in PWI, but the fact that they singled her out to be the best wrestler of that year feels like there's a little bit of significance. You are not responsible for the people around you or what your era entailed. And you can try to shit on the 2010s of wrestling, but there was good things happening in that time. Now, let's go to the numbers. 2-time WWE Women's Champion / 2-time WWE Divas Champion, and she was the inaugural Divas Champion. Okay? So we got 4-time World Champion for Michelle McCool. Let's put some respect on her name. And on top of that, let's add to the fact that there was no women's tag team title during Lay Cool's time, in a time where Lay Cool dominated the women's tag team division. They definitely would have had a lengthy tag team title run in a time where they were competing with the Bella Twins, who, mind you, are in the Hall of Fame, and Natalya and Beth Phoenix, who Beth Phoenix is in the Hall of Fame. Natalya will be in the Hall of Fame. You're talking about she wrestled in an era that was kind of a dead era, but we're now talking about 4 Hall of Famers that Michelle McCool was heavily involved with, and she was a 4-time champion during this point of wrestling. Let's also compare her to the other women who are already in the Hall of Fame, because that's what we do with Hall of Fames, right? The Fabulous Moolah. She was a women's champion 4 times. Sherry Martel, 1-time champion. Mae Young, never a champion. Wendy Richter, don't know who some of these people are. I just have statistics here. 2-time women's champion. Sunny, primarily known as a manager and did not ever have a world championship. Trish Stratus, who is the outlier of this list, 7-time world champion. Lita, 4-time world champion. Alundra Blaze, 3-time world champion. Jacqueline, 2-time world champion. Beth Phoenix, 3-time world champion. Ivory, 3-time world champion. Chyna, 2-time Intercontinental Champion, 1-time WWE Women's Champion. All right. Tori Wilson, never held a championship. The Bella Twins are in. Got to remember, the Bella Twins are in. Nikki, 2-time Divas Champion. Brie, 1-time Divas Champion. I know they had some WWE. I don't know if they ever were Women's Champion now that I think about it. I have to look that up. That may be the only titles they held. But we got Molly Holly, 2-time WWE Women's Champion. Charmel never held a Women's Championship. Stacy Keibler did not hold a recognized WWE Women's Championship. Bull Nakano, 1-time champion. Leah Maivia was a promoter. And we have Michelle McCool, who is a 4-time world champion. To say she had no memorable matches, that's unfair. That's an unfair statement. She was the product of her time. She wrestled with Natalya, Beth Phoenix, and the Bella Twins. She also had Kelly Kelly and Maurice. That was who she had to wrestle, and those matches were memorable in that time. I've never listened to Jim Cornette, but I understand why people find him off-putting. I actually do. Michelle McCool was in one of the first ever all women's table matches, which was a pretty good match. This is such a disingenuine argument. I did not listen past 3 minutes of this thing. That's a 15-minute clip that was sent to me. So maybe 14 minutes in, they changed their mind and they came to my side. But after 3 minutes, I had to cut this shit off. Like, I don't understand the argument. They throw around the word nepotism. They talk like she's chopped liver. Like, 4-time world champion. I'm sorry. That looks to be the qualification to make it into the women's side of the Hall of Fame. Like, there's really no benchmark to get into the WWE Hall of Fame. Why are we pretending when someone like The Godfather, who I love, The Godfather, but The Godfather's in, and he was a lifetime mid-card wrestler at best. He's in. Hey, Brie Bella, she's not a Hall of Famer, but she's in. And if we're saying it's because of the Bella twins, I make the argument Lay Cool was on the same level as the Bella twins. They were right in the mix. This is a strange hill to die on when it comes to the Hall of Fame. She has the stats, she has the credentials. Stop acting like we measure greatness by memorable matches. I could go down the list of Hall of Fame wrestlers right now, and I probably don't remember 90% of the matches that those people are in. Let's jump into the take number 2 from the Discord.
We too deep, no way out now. Drowning in the takes, better learn how to swim or bow.
My boy We Too Deep, host of the Slapping Meat podcast. Make sure to go check that out. He dropped a little gem and said, after Monday Night Raw, I'm even more convinced Bianca Belair is the attacker and will be announced soon after she wins the Elimination Chamber and goes on to challenge Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. All right, Deep. Here we go. So in the cold open of the show, I tease that Bianca Belair may end up not having a spot on the WrestleMania card. And I'm telling you, there's this deep, eerie pit feeling in my chest that she's going to end up being an NPC to the Jade and Naomi story, which is about to take place in the next couple of weeks. Triple H, this is how you lose me extremely quickly. There are very few things that you can do to fuck up my WWE experience. You don't mess with Kevin Owens booking. You keep the Wyatt Six busy at Universal Studios, and you don't mess with the EST. That's it. That's all you have to do to keep Nerdy D happy. And I'm praying right now to the wrestling gods on a nightly basis that they've given We Too Deep the foresight, the vision to see through the clouds and correctly predict a Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley WrestleMania match that would be absolutely perfect. I would just, everything else could fall anyway. I would be absolutely ecstatic, but We Too Deep, I fear this. I fear that me and Wavy Sherlock Holmes, that's what I'm calling Wavy Sherlock Holmes, we figured this shit out on Wavy Mania last week, and Bianca's not making it to the chamber. I don't think Bianca's stepping foot inside the Elimination Chamber. I think Naomi is going to take her out before she ever gets to the match. I think Io's going to get the call to step in as a replacement, and we're going to get Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley in at WrestleMania. That's what's happening. I absolutely believe that to be so. So we get Rhea versus Io. I'm predicting that Raquel and Liv are going to win the tag team titles next week. So there'll be no tag team championship match for Bianca Belair after she carried the division for 365 days. So what's that leave us with? It leaves us with Naomi and Jade. Naomi and Jade with Bianca Belair playing the odd man out. Now, we could cross our fingers. We could pray to the wrestling gods. Maybe somehow we get a triple threat match. Maybe somehow they work Bianca into that match, because last year we got the famed trio, and this year we get them all turning on each other. That's a long shot. But my fear right now is Bianca is on the outside looking in, and I will put in my prayers to the wrestling gods. Here's a Hail Mary. Put Bianca Belair with the Street Profits. Get her out of all of this bullshit nonsense booking. Let them go into WrestleMania against American Made or Alpha Academy. The numbers match up. You could have Montez, you could have Doc, you could have Bianca. On the other side, you could have Gable or Ivy or the Creed. We make it work. Let's get her out of this. But I fear, there's a part of me that absolutely fears that Bianca being left off the card or being thrown into some bullshit side piece match at WrestleMania is really starting to worry me deep. It really is. You're going to have to talk me off this ledge. You're going to have to talk me off this ledge, because I'm praying. I am on your ship. Whatever direction you're sailing, whatever vision you're seeing, my hand is on your shoulder and I am walking with you to try and get to that destination. I have a horrible pit in my stomach that we are headed towards the inevitable just rock bottom for Bianca Belair. It's time to jump into this week's big take. So this week's big take comes from WON. They officially proclamate the Wyatt Six are officially the worst gimmick of 2024. Now, I remember the days, I remember the weeks after the initial booking of the Wyatt Six when the casual wrestling community proclaimed to the world that the Wyatt Six had nowhere to go. And all of these dirt sheets and all of these IWC members, they told us, chill the fuck out, you're overreacting. The Wyatt Six just need time. Look, they're over. The crowd cheers them. You guys just don't understand. They told us the Wyatt Six are being used sporadically on purpose. And we kept telling them, nope, Triple H doesn't have faith in these guys. And they kept saying, you guys don't know what you're talking about. And here we are. Here we are at the beginning of 2025, and now they've all come aboard the casual wrestling train. They've all jumped on to try to become a part of what we said from the very, very beginning, and that was that the Wyatt Six were burnt toast and they had nowhere to go. Now, here's the problem. Welcome to the train, guys, but some of us have gotten off of that train. I'm going to make a very loud proclamation right now, and that is hold your horses on taking hot, steamy shits on the Wyatt Six. They aren't dead. I'm going to make a crazy prediction. Mark my words, in 2025, the Wyatt Six will have a resurgence that will rival what the Judgment Day is in terms of success. And it is all because of one person named Alexa Bliss. Everyone, including Bo Dallas and the Wyatt Six, are role players. That's been the problem from the jump. They can't create a story. They can't create excitement. They can't keep people's interest. It's what's been lacking from the Wyatt Six is purpose and star power. Alexa Bliss is all of the above. She is a shot in the ass of adrenaline to the Wyatt Six. Now, some people say it may be too late. I just don't believe it's too late. The reality is the Wyatt Six on pieces of paper work on so many levels. And they've even maintained a certain fan base even after all of the just ape shit stupid booking. The reality is the Wyatt Six are a traveling circus that we still are kind of interested to see. The reality is the Wyatt Six are a traveling circus without a ringmaster. And Alexa Bliss can be the Barnum and Bailey. The Wyatts can ride the wave of Alexa's return. They can ride the wave of Alexa's momentum. They can ride Alexa's popularity. The Wyatt Six have to lean into the redemption of Alexa Bliss. They need to play some of the greatest hits of Bray Wyatt. I can see a world where an Alexa Bliss and a Nikki Cross go after the women's tag team titles. I can see a world where Alexa Bliss starts going back after everybody who ever wronged Bray Wyatt in his career, going back after an LA Knight or a John Cena. I can see a world where this can work. They've got to stay away from the men getting in title pictures, and they've got to have a purpose. And I believe that purpose can be the direction of Alexa Bliss. I am of all belief that Alexa can turn this sinking ship around. It's a wild prediction. I know. For somebody who said that early on I said the Wyatt Six were cooked. I said Triple H had no faith in them. I just believe that after what we saw at Royal Rumble, we saw the crowd get excited for Alexa Bliss. We've already seen that they are teasing the little glitches and things like that with Alexa. We've already seen Alexa carrying around the Lily doll. We've already seen that clearly she is part of the Wyatt Six in some form or fashion. So I believe as soon as even WrestleMania, we could see some semblance of a Wyatt Six with purpose. And so here we go. Nerdy D going on record right now. WON, you could say worst gimmick of 2024. You guys could all try to jump on the train now because it's popular to shit on the Wyatt Six. I'm going to jump off. I'm going to do a complete 360. I'm going to leave you guys with this. 2025 will be the year that the Wyatt Six have a resurgence. They're not going to be main card. Let's chill, okay? But they're going to find their spots on the roster, and they're going to make a little bit of noise. Let's get to community take number 3. This one comes from... Longtime member of the casual wrestling community. This is his first take that has made it to the official big show here. My man B-Master with big takeaway from Raw. Dakota Kai is going to win the Intercontinental title for a couple of reasons. 1, she's over with the crowd. 2, she's easy on the eyes. And 3, she is a Samoan. Love the take, B-Master. I love the take. I love it because you got us talking about something other than the major 3 storylines. Feels like we hit those week after week. I like getting into the kind of the grit of pro wrestling and talking about deeper things. And I think that this take definitely is interesting because you hit on some key questions that a lot of wrestling podcasters don't want to talk about. There's a lot of pro wrestling content creators that don't want to talk about politics, and I mean politics of wrestling, and they don't want to talk about looks. And I'm not one to shy away from it, B-Master. I'm not one to shy away from the conversation. I think it's stupid how all these content creators are so afraid to speak on these topics, and they sometimes just absolutely act like these topics don't exist. But let's break down what you said. Let's break down the 3 parts of what you said. You say, number 1, she's going to win because she's Samoan. I'm not going to go with you on this one. I don't think that these wrestlers necessarily get pushed because they are Samoan or of a certain race. She has no real tie to the bloodline. So I don't see the value in using that as a metric to push her. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just don't believe that race will play a factor in Dakota Kai. I think there's a huge ignorant portion of the audience that has no clue she has any bit of Samoan in her at all. I think a lot of us see her as, this is ignorant too, but as Australian, even though I know she's like from New Zealand or something like that, but that's kind of what we see. So let's move past that part. I don't think that's what it is. The part that you bring up that's more interesting is she's easy on the eyes. Let's take the visceral reaction out of that, right? Because the white knights of TikTok are going to come and they're going to pretend like that doesn't exist. Like wrestling fans don't ever look at female and male wrestlers and go, oh, they're attractive, right? But these are the same IWC members who stand out over Liv Morgan on a weekly basis and just mask it by saying, look at how great she's improved in the ring. Like, dude, we're on to you. We understand what y'all are doing here, but let's be real for a second, right? Because what B-Master said is absolutely correct. There's nothing wrong about what he said. To a certain extent in professional wrestling, looks matter. It's why the men don't wear shirts. It's why the women wear certain outfits. It's the hardest thing for the IWC to wrap their heads around too, right? Here's reality, guys. Kenny Omega looks like Uncle Laser. He looks like he came from a trailer park. He's 6 foot, 210 pounds soaking wet. There's a reason why Roman Reigns at 6'3", 250 pounds looks like fucking Aquaman is more over than a Kenny Omega. There's a reason why Randy Orton at 6'5", built like a fucking Roman sculpture. There's a reason he's more over. It's asinine to pretend that looks don't matter in pro wrestling. especially when it comes to how you're booked. I won't argue with a straight face right now, because sometimes I'd fuck around and say this, but I won't argue with a straight face right now that Roman Reigns, when it comes to the X's and O's of professional wrestling, is a better wrestler than someone like Kenny Omega. But that is omitting the entire package. And that is why the IWC is so confused why a guy like Will Ospreay can't get over. It's because there's just a look that goes with professional wrestling. And it's not always attractiveness. Some of it has to do with physicality. There's different looks that get over, but let's not lie to ourselves. Attractiveness is a huge benefit in professional wrestling. That's men and women. That is not just on the women's side. If you want to be a dog face, you should probably be in MMA, because professional wrestling is more kin to a pageant than it is to a sporting event. Look, there's no difference in other sports, right? In professional basketball, height matters. You could pretend like it doesn't, but it matters. In pro football, hand size for quarterbacks is a big deal. Now, can you overcome these things? Sure, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier if you don't have to. So let's circle back. Let's talk about Dakota Kai and Lyra Valkyria, because I've gone on record saying Lyra Valkyria comes off as the weird girl. That's just how she comes off to me. Now, quite a few people have written me from behind the scenes saying that was an absolute spot on take, Nerdy D. There's people who've written me and said, I wish I could have said that out loud. There's people, but I'll say the things out loud that you guys don't want to say out loud. I'll say it so we can all laugh together. But the reality is that's the vibes I get from a Lyra Valkyria. But this take from B Master interests me outside of the looks situation, which, sure, that is a reason that Dakota Kai could get over. I'm going to assume at this point, B Master, you're assuming Becky Lynch is not returning before WrestleMania. Because having said everything I just said, I'm not ready to jump off of the Lyra Valkyria booking so fast. I have to admit, I think that I still think Lyra Valkyria is set up to succeed at least through WrestleMania. I still believe this is what's going on. I think the titles are fresh. The Intercontinental and Women's U.S. title are fresh, and they don't want both of those titles rolling into WrestleMania having had one defense each. They need those to have a little bit of seasoning on them so they at least feel like there's a little bit of value, especially if you're bringing back like a Becky Lynch. I don't think you want her going after a title that's been defended one time. So I think, unfortunately, that Dakota Kai is going to be a casualty of war here and that she's going to take the L against Lyra Valkyria. And I think, let's play fantasy booking for a little bit. Stick with me here, B Master. I think that maybe during this match, we get Dakota and Lyra battle it out. Hell of a match. It's going to be fun. Lyra narrowly pulls it out. Match ends. Boom. Becky's music hits. Becky comes out to the ring, sticks her hands out, congratulates Lyra Valkyria. They hug. They're still holding hands. As Lyra pulls away, Becky pulls her back in, hits her with a manhandle slam, picks up the women's IC title, holds it up and yells, "The man is back, baby." And that's how we get to Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria at WrestleMania. It's fantasy booking. Maybe it doesn't happen. I'm just not sure, B Master, right now, at this point in time, under 60 days to WrestleMania, that there is a benefit in pulling the title off of Lyra Valkyria and putting it on Dakota Kai if Becky Lynch is in the play for WrestleMania. If Becky Lynch is not coming back, sure, let these two go at it. They can have another match at WrestleMania if they need to. But I think if Becky Lynch is in the plans, I think just purely based on the history that Lyra Valkyria has with Becky Lynch, that's a built-in story that Dakota Kai, no matter the looks, no matter her culture, no matter how over she is with the crowd, I just think that is an insurmountable mountain for a justification to put the title on her going into WrestleMania. Unfortunately, though, that leads us to a take from the IWC.
111, 110.
So I'm not going to shout out whose name this was because based on what this actual message was that was sent to me, I know YouTube is not favorable when we take shits on the IWC, so we'll go anonymous here. But this IWC take says, Ricky Saints sounds like a gay porn star, man. You and the WWE fans are so subordinate. They tell you anything they want and you eat it all up. This is a jobber name, Nerdy D. First off, my guy, terrible take. Secondly, the fuck are you talking about, bro? Start with the fact. Just start with the simple fact that Ricky picked the name. He picked the name based on a strong connection to his hometown. WWE doesn't always have some crooked agenda. I know that's the biggest talking point for the IWC is that WWE they always have to have some crooked agenda. They don't want Ricky Starks making money off his name. They wouldn't give him enough percentage of the sales. There is a world. There's a possibility that they just sat down, talked it out, and they both came to the idea, let's leave the past in the past, let's give you a new name, and let's start fresh in NXT. That is completely a possibility. But this reality, man, this guy has ties to New Orleans. This guy's going to be big. He's going to be big in New Orleans. And where do we go about 365 days? Oh, that's right. WrestleMania is going to be in New Orleans next year. So they're setting this character up for success. We get about 6 months of Ricky Starks in NXT. We bring him up to the main roster right around the time of WrestleMania next year, and he picks up an IC or United States Championship win. He's being set up to win. And Ricky Starks is the kind of guy who benefits from a strong gimmick. The whole fucking hand to the face and the things he does, he plays well, really leaning into the New Orleans vibe. This is going to fit who he is as long as they package it with the right music and the right entrance and they give him the right opportunities. I promise you, my guy, 3 weeks from now, you won't remember who Ricky Starks was. 3 weeks from now, Ricky will just be known as Ricky Saints, and that will be that. The problem is, this is the problem for a lot of AEW fans, and unfortunately, I'm going to lump in some of the NXT fans into this boat because NXT fans tend to be a tighter, small-knit community that while I would say they're more reasonable than the IWC, the NXT crowd still tends to have some tribalism towards NXT. And this small group just doesn't realize they're not able to grasp the bigger picture that most casual wrestling fans don't know who Ricky Starks is. So we're all being introduced to Ricky whatever for the first time. And when you put the name Ricky Starks next to the name Ricky Saints, the name Ricky Saints evokes more emotional imagery than Ricky Starks, as crazy as that sounds, because your emotional attachment comes from his time in AEW. When you just put the two names next to each other, Ricky Saints definitely gives off New Orleans vibes. That's just the reality. And you got to look at the past. Look at Gunther, right? I remember all of the freak out from the IWC when they changed from Walter and they made Gunther. But here's the problem, man. For guys like me and most of the other casual wrestling fans, we didn't know who Walter was. I had no history with Walter. And I will tell you that the name Gunther, it evokes strength and emotion. It is, as weird as it sounds, Gunther gives off kind of a Bond villain vibe. While the name Walter, that gives off guy who works at Best Buy in the Geek Squad and fixes computers. The reality is they made the right change at the right time. As shocking as it was to everybody who knew him as Walter, the reality was in the long run, when he's introduced to that bigger casual fan base, that old name's not gonna matter. That's just the reality of what it is. Rusev became Miro, right? Aleister Black became Malachi Black. Name changes just aren't as important as the IWC wants you to believe they are. The important part is bringing the gimmick together and performing. And I think Ricky Saints is going to work. Like I said, it's already, as I say the name Ricky Saints, it's already starting to stick with me. And I'm completely sold on the name. He will be a spectacle when they go to New Orleans. When WWE rolls into New Orleans, Ricky Saints will be a spectacle. He will be a feature. He will be a prominent part of WrestleMania 42. Mark my words. This is long-term, smart booking and storytelling. The IWC hate it, right? Once again, because WWE, instead of doing what appeases the IWC, they make decisions based on what's best for business. And that's not just the business of WWE, but they also, I believe, look at it from Ricky Stark's standpoint. And I promise you, like I said, come back in a month and no one will be talking about the name Starks anymore. You won't be talking about it. I can promise you. Let's drop into the fourth and final take from the Discord, and we'll close the show out.
Dropping bombs, yeah, the taste too raw. Talking reckless on the right, got him clutching they jaw. He don't play safe, nah, he don't play nice. Say the wrong name, that's a burial lie.
So this take comes from JoJo404, and this was an email submitted through the Casual Wrestling email. JoJo said, are people really bothered by AEW's ring size? I feel like people are just digging for any excuse to put down AEW. Like, really, this is where we're at now. It's so sad. No one legitimately cares about ring size. So JoJo, clearly probably not a fan of the show, more of an AEW guy, but that's all right. We take takes from anywhere we can get them. But here's what I think is important to talk about right here, because I think this is where I can really speak up and explain why this matters, because I'm a casual wrestling fan and even more a casual wrestling AEW watcher. It's not just the ring, JoJo. If it was just the ring, I think it might be slightly comical, but I think it would have slid and nobody would have really talked about it. To me, it's what the ring represents in terms of a larger picture of what Tony Khan tries to portray his company's image to be. And what AEW sickos, I don't know if you're a sicko, JoJo. I don't know if you're an IWC. I don't know what you are. But there's an image that a lot of the AEW fans try to portray about what AEW is. So I'll start off by saying, I admit, I don't know anything about what happened at AEW's Australia show. It could have been an amazing night of wrestling. Could have been the best night of wrestling of all time. Absolutely hope it was. I hope that it was a great show, had no issues. If everything went to plan, here's the reality. If you had a great night of wrestling and there wasn't a small ring and some of the other problems that surrounded the show, the conversation the following week is AEW killed it. And as a casual fan, I go, maybe I need to start paying attention. Maybe I need to put an eye back on that product. Maybe I need to look into what I'm missing. But here's the reality, JoJo. This is the reality of what happened. That's not the conversation this week. What I know as an outsider to AEW is there was supposed to be a pay-per-view in Australia, and it turned into a television show, and people were upset about that. That's what I know right now. Then I know that for a show that was seemingly supposed to be important, there was a ring that wasn't the right size. Now, I know a lot of fans were pissed off about the show changing from pay-per-view to a television show. I think shit like that happens. I know there's a lot of people making fun of the ring. Shit like that happens. But to me, the part that becomes problematic, JoJo, is how Tony Khan handles the situation post all of these things happening, right? So when I read that Tony Khan says all of these decisions were made coming off of NBA All-Star Saturday Night because the network wanted to try and engage viewers coming out of a big event like that. To me, when I hear that, that sounds like a desperate attempt to kind of salvage just mistakes, right? These were just mistakes that were made, just, shouldn't be made, but these were just mistakes made. I also saw Tony Khan come out and try and follow this with, this was the most important card for AEW in 2025. That this was being booked as a super card, and this was supposed to be one of the biggest shows you're going to see. Here's the problem. It pulled in 500,000 viewers, which that's not me making fun of that number. If on a weekly basis, AEW's at about 350, and that means you pulled in 150 more, do you really like that optic? Do you like the optic of all of these, let's call them casual fans, right? Because these are probably casual fans. They're probably NBA All-Star fans who know what wrestling is, who go, oh, there's wrestling on. They turn it on, and the first thing they see is a tiny little ring that looks like it's falling apart. Is that the optic that they wanted? Is that the narrative that you wanted? Because as a casual wrestling fan, I thought you're pinning this as a big show. And the only other big show I can pin this towards is WWE doing their Netflix debut. And with WWE, you had the Netflix debut. They went all out, man. They had fucking curtains and lights and lasers and fucking smoke. And then we go to what you're calling an important show, and you can't even get the right size ring into the arena. And don't give me the bullshit about, I don't like the idea of like it's logistics and shipping. You've gotten rings overseas before. Like, with the amount of money you have, you can get this ring to where it goes. Now, I know QT Marshall came out and said, like, we knew all along we rented this ring from some other company. That's fine. But Tony, you should have came out and said, I didn't fucking know that's what we were renting. Like, Tony, step up and fucking say, like, there were decisions made within the company that I was not informed of, and this is what we ended up with. Because to me, honestly, I don't even know if it's the size of the ring that bothers me as much when I look at pictures. I think it's how much it looks like the ring is falling apart. I think it's literally looks like it's being put together by paper clips, and I'm not gonna lie, and this is probably fucked up, but the first thing I thought when I saw the ring and how jankified it looked like it was falling over, the first thing I thought was, damn, this thing looks worse than the ring that like the micro wrestlers who wrestle at like Hooters in your local city. The AEW ring looks worse than that tiny little ring that the micro wrestlers lose. At least all 4 posts on the micro ring are standing straight up. But like I said, my problem is this isn't the first time you traveled overseas. It's not your first road show. These were oversights. And instead of coming out and owning them and going, all right, look, we dropped the ball on this. We dropped the ball on a lot of this. We understand we fucked up and we're only going to get better from this. It becomes this game of covering up, and it's a he said, she said, it's pointing fingers. We rented the ring from this. Like, if you really rented that ring sight unseen and you show up and that's what's in the middle of the building is this dilapidated wrestling ring, I think you've got to just be irate. You've got to be, if my friend Dave Meltzer, I'd be over there just giving him all the tea on what happened so that we could get the straight story out there, not covering up like we meant to do this. This is what we meant to do. Coming out of the All-Star game, we wanted this optic. That's absolutely insane. And I saw Bubba Ray say that he didn't see the big deal and that fans are kind of overhyping the situation. To me, the issue for a Bubba Ray, I call him Bubba Ray, I know there's another name he goes by, but the issue for me is that Bubba's seen rings all around the world. So he's seen rings that look a lot worse than that, I'm sure. He's seen rings that look a lot better than that, I'm sure. What he's not taking into consideration, like I said, is this is coming out of the All-Star game where you saw a spike, you saw a crossover and new people watching the product. Not to mention, I mean, I guarantee you the WB execs were watching this show and you click on the TV and you see a ring that looks like it's falling apart. And that is a representation not only of AEW, that's a representation of TNT. That's a representation of WB. That's a representation of what, I don't know what channel it was on, but that's a representation of all of those people. And they got to turn it on. And the guy from WB's got to be like, what is this, a fucking circus? Like, why don't we? I watch WWE, their rings lighting up and spraying fire. It's got LED boards on it, and our shit doesn't look like it's going to make it through the night, right? Like, the truth is, coming out of an All-Star weekend, if this was as big of an event as you thought it was, this should have been treated like the premiere of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. Like, it should have been overdone. Should have been lights, lasers, cameras, I'd have had a ring, and I'd have had a backup ring there. I'd have had everything that I needed to make sure that this show went down exactly the way I wanted to, because instead, like I said, it's not just the size of the ring. It's not just that the ring was falling over. It's not that this was a pay-per-view and it got turned into a regular TV taping. It is when you combine all those optics together, that is the conversation coming out of a show that was supposed to, this was a show that was supposed to reinvigorate your crowd. Coming out of the All-Star game, you could have gained a little bit of market space back, but instead, I think the reality is people turned that on and went, oh, AEW's hurting. AEW's in trouble. And like I said, to be honest with you, I'll throw you out one last joke to throw it out. I don't even know that the ring size matters that much, because with the small wrestlers in AEW, can you even tell? It looked like a big ring with those guys in there, right? But that's all we've got for this week. Keep the hot takes coming, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to join the Discord if you have not already. As always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D. I will catch up with you guys next week.